All right, let's get right into it. You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You finish a track, you're super excited, you hit play, but something's just off. It feels kind of crowded, a little messy, and you can't quite figure out why. Well, today we are going to fix that. We're going to take that mud and turn it into crystal clear clarity. This is probably the number one question I get asked. That whole muddy or congested sound is, I think, the most common frustration when you're starting out. Here's the thing, though. It's not about volume. It's about space. In the good news, it is absolutely a problem we can solve with just a little know-how and a couple of key tools. And this quote right here, this is the whole game. This is the big idea we need to wrap our heads around. Your mix isn't just a random jumble of sounds. I want you to start thinking of it as physical space, like a plot of land. Every single sound, from the deepest kick drum to the shiniest cymbal, it needs its own little spot to live. When things get muddy, it's just because too many sounds are trying to cram into the same spot. Okay, so let's really dive into this. To fix the problem, the very first thing we need is a map. And instead of thinking about frequencies as just a bunch of boring numbers, I want you to picture the entire range of human hearing as a city. Trust me, it helps make everything click. So here it is. Here's our city map. Way down at the bottom, the sub-bass, from 20 to 60 hertz. That's like the deep subway rumble that you feel in your chest more than you actually hear. Now look at the low mids, 250 to 500. This is important. That's the crowded city block where most of that mud we talked about lives. The mid-range, that's the bustling main street where all the action and all the clarity happens. And the highs, that's the open air, the skyline, the sparkle. Just knowing these zones is your first big step. Now, what's so interesting about this is that it shows us exactly why our mixes get muddy. Just look at the kick drum and the bass guitar. See how the main energy for both of them is living in that same 40 to 150 hertz neighborhood? They're literally fighting for the same sonic real estate. This is called frequency masking. And our job as mixers, well, our job is to be the traffic cop. So how do we stop them from fighting? How do we direct the traffic? We need a scalpel. And our most basic, most powerful scalpel is the equalizer, or as you know it, the EQ. It lets us surgically turn down or cut specific frequencies on one instrument just to make a little room for another one to breathe. Okay, let's get super practical. We've all fought this battle, trying to get a kick drum to sound like a cannon instead of like someone kicking a wet cardboard box. We can totally fix this with 3 simple, really intentional moves. Here's your starting point. First, a little boost around 60 hertz, that gives you that punch you can feel. Next, and this is the crucial move, we cut the mud, usually somewhere between 250 and 350 hertz. This single move is what carves out the space for the bass guitar to sit in. And finally, we can add a little boost way up at 4 to 6 kilohertz to bring out that click of the beater. So remember, thump, cut, click. But, what if a problem isn't always there? What if a vocal only sounds harsh on certain words? Or an acoustic guitar only gets boomy on one specific chord? If we just use a regular EQ cut, it affects the entire performance. That's when we need to reach for a smarter scalpel. And that brings us to multiband compression. Now, it sounds way more complicated than it is. Just imagine having a tiny automatic volume knob just for the muddy frequencies and another one just for the harsh frequencies. It only turns a frequency down when it gets too loud, and it leaves it alone the rest of the time. It's dynamic, not static. It's smart. I love this quote. It just gets to the absolute heart of it. This isn't some magic fix-it button. It's a precision tool, and it requires you to really listen and have a clear goal in mind. It's all about making thoughtful, surgical decisions, not just, slapping on a preset and hoping for the best. This slide breaks it down perfectly. Think about it. A standard EQ is like carving a tunnel through a mountain. That tunnel is always there, whether there are cars in it or not. But multiband compression, that's like a smart traffic light. It only stops the traffic in one specific lane, and only when there's a jam. The rest of the time, everything just flows freely. See the difference? So what this really means is you're performing tiny, precise surgery, but only where and when it's absolutely needed. That acoustic guitar getting boomy on the low strings, just compress only those low mids. The vocalist getting a little sharp and harsh on the high notes, just compress only those upper mids. This is how you solve problems without killing the natural vibe and the energy of the original performance. Okay, we've talked a lot about tools, EQ, compression, but now we have to talk about the single most important thing. Let's call it the philosophy.
Because honestly, without the right mindset, none of these tools really matter.
Man, we've all been guilty of this, right? We think, oh, if I just buy that one new fancy plugin, my mixes will magically sound professional. It's a total myth. I promise you, what will transform your mixes is practice and learning to truly hear what is going on. Developing your ears, that is the real secret. And this is the attitude you should bring to every single mix. If you start with a great performance, your job is not to change it. Your job is to simply get out of the way. Your job is to carve away the mud and the little conflicts so that the raw power of that original performance can just shine through. We are here to enhance, not to overpower. So here it is, your homework. This is the single best exercise for training your ears, period. Take any EQ, make a big, sharp boost, and just slowly sweep it from left to right, from the lowest lows to the highest highs. And just listen, pay attention. Find out what boxy actually sounds like. Pinpoint that nasal tone. Identify exactly where harshness lives. If you do this enough, you'll soon just know what 400 Hz sounds like without ever having to look at a chart. And in the end, every single mix decision you make comes down to this one question. Forget the charts, forget the rules for a second, just close your eyes, listen, and really trust what your ears are telling you. That is how you're going to find clarity. Now go open up a session and start listening.